Hi, this is Chris Cisnowski from B&W Control Systems Integration. On behalf of the Illinois Section AWWA and the TCON Committee, I want to thank everyone for being flexible today because I was unable to be here physically. But I thought instead of just blowing it off and not coming, I could be here virtually. So thank you for the flexibility for allowing me to talk a little bit about some cybersecurity. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about whitelisting and its place in public works, and I'm going to jump right in. So first of all, sometimes I think it helps defining a word by what it's not. And in this case, I'll define whitelisting by what it's not. So whitelisting is not blacklisting. Blacklisting is what we're most all familiar with. And a blacklist is essentially a list of denied items. These can be programs, they can be files, they can be sources, they can be ports on a firewall, they can be destinations, lots of different things that we can block in IT cyberland. And traditionally we do this to lock down and improve security just by denying a bunch of things that we know are bad. So this is a good thing. The easy example to think about is antivirus software. So we get a big long list of possible viruses that our computer can get or our hardware can get, and we make this big long list available, and typically these vendors publish these lists very aggressively as soon as they know. And then once we get that list, we can check that against traffic that's coming in and out, and we can say this is not good and we shouldn't allow it on our network. So that's blacklisting. So this is another graphical representation, very simple here, about what a blacklist is. So if I want to do something or go somewhere on a network, essentially it goes into something that says is what I want to do on the blacklist. And if it is on the blacklist, then you can't go there or can't do that. Or if it is not on the blacklist, then we say go ahead and move forward. So that's a blacklist. That makes it a little bit easier to understand what a whitelist is. So simply, a whitelist is essentially a list of approved items. Again, this can be the same list of things that is designed to lock down or improve security by allowing items in the list through. So this sounds similar to a blacklist, but a little bit different, a lot more restrictive. So some other thoughts on this definition is whitelists is part of what we call a defense in depth strategy. So this graphic over here shows maybe a little bit graphically what defense in depth is, saying that we've got physical security, a lock on a door. We have electronic security. We don't allow anybody to plug into our network jacks or connect to our Wi-Fi networks. And then we also have cybersecurity, which whitelist is part of the cybersecurity. So that's a little bit about what defense in depth is. So whitelist is a good part of that. Whitelisting is considered a lot more secure than blacklist, just because by default everything is denied. As opposed to a blacklist, if there's only one thing on the blacklist, then only one thing can be blocked and everything else goes through. So business IT, just an important thing to talk about when you're talking to IT professionals about what we do in industrial automation. But business information technology is usually about this thing they call the CIA triad, where it's confidentiality is super important, integrity, and then availability. In industrial IT and in the water space, I think you'd all agree with me, it's kind of the opposite. Availability is our primary objective. We have to have our water. So just to recap what whitelisting is in light of my first graphic, I'm going to show the same graphic again, but we'll show you what it looks like on a whitelist. So we start with I want to do something, go somewhere on a network. Now when I say I mean I could be a packet of data, I could be an instruction from a PLC to a well to turn on or turn off. I could be a program, I could be an email, anything on that. And is it on the whitelist? If it is on the whitelist, then we let it through. If it's not on the whitelist, of course, then it's rejected, typically and noted in a log. So that gives us the definition of a whitelist. Let's talk a little bit about what exactly we can whitelist. So this was inside the parentheses in the earlier slide. So pretty much the obvious thing that people always think about is antivirus. So corporate antivirus software. I say corporate just because there's a lot of free software out there that you can download from the internets and load on your computer to block things. We typically don't recommend any sort of residential software in an industrial automation environment. So I listed a few good vendors on there. There are many more that do corporate antivirus, but certainly we can have a whitelist in antivirus to say that pretty much every attachment is blocked except for the attachments that we know to be safe. We can also create whitelists inside of hardware firewalls. So hardware being an appliance that you can install physically somewhere. Some good manufacturers there of some commercial corporate firewall vendors. And there's software too, so we can run firewalls on a computer. And that can be the Windows firewall that's built in. It can be any number of those same vendors that provide software firewalls. I want to talk a little bit about industrial security hardware. Switches is an example. There's also other types of industrial security hardware out there. You'll notice the manufacturers are a little bit different, may not be as familiar to you, but if you just do a Google search of industrial security hardware or industrial whitelisting hardware, you'll find a few of these vendor names on there. And these companies are very in tune to the types of protocols and communications that we need in industrial IT or industrial automation. So probably the biggest one on this list to consider is this industrial security hardware. Of course, we have our Windows operating systems. Most all of our stuff operates either on a Windows operating systems, a Windows Server operating system, or a Windows desktop operating system. It's interesting to know that the server operating systems have far greater granularity and flexibility than just running your SCADA on for example, a Windows 7 workstation. I hope you're not running any Windows XP in any of these systems. But there's another classification that we call intrusion prevention systems or intrusion detection systems, so IDS or IPS. These are usually hardware. They can fall under that industrial security hardware category too. But those are some of the things that can whitelist. So let's wrap up here with just some questions. So these are the practical takeaways. Because what do I do, Chris? How do I talk to my IT folks or my integrator about what you're talking about here? Because I don't know where to start with whitelisting. So these are some questions to take away. First of all, you need to know who's responsible for SCADA security. It may be the Public Works Director. It may be the Water or Wastewater Superintendent. You need to know who that is, and we need to make sure to have a plan for when stuff goes bad so that when it does go bad, we don't have bad consequences from that. So that's a good place to start, is to know who's in charge of SCADA security. My guess is that you think it's IT and that IT thinks it's you. So that discussion needs to take place. So second, ask your IT or integrator these questions. Can any part of the internet communicate directly with any part of my SCADA network? So many of you have remote access software on there. I think the answer would be yes for you. If you do, then if yes, does this connection allow remote users to connect directly to the SCADA server or PLCs? So can you, from the internet, connect to your SCADA server or PLCs? If the answer is yes, this is probably not good. And the next question would be, how do we fix it so this isn't the case? Another question, what are the restrictions on our connections? Can we create a whitelist where pretty much everything on the PLC and SCADA server can only talk to each other and nothing else can talk to it? That's a good possibility. We like that one. We like to keep SCADA and the PLCs isolated. So third question, can you help me figure out what industrial protocols and ports we have that can be blacklist, that need to be allowed so that we can whitelist them? So that's a little bit more of a technical question, but a good one to jot down and mention to them. So just some quick, easy takeaways. Make sure your administrative network is separated from SCADA. Please tell me you can't sit down at a computer in City Hall and access or ping a PLC or software that's on your SCADA network. That's not a good thing either. And certainly if you end up getting into these appliances and security hardware, whatever you end up buying, you got to have a support agreement for that so that someone can review that, update that, keep this up to date, because it's kind of a cat and mouse game. So some conclusions. Defense in depth is important. Remember, you have to have layers. My quote there from Shrek, courtesy of DreamWorks, is a funny quote that says, Shrek says, no layers. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. You get it? We both have layers. Anyway, it's a good movie. Defense in depth is all about layers. So remember, availability is key in our world. Need to keep the water on. Remember, it's not CIA, it's AIC. And then you have to know who's responsible, have to have a good backup of SCADA so that if stuff goes wrong, we can put things back together. And lastly, just make sure you do something about this. So with that, I will not take any questions. Thank you for bearing with me. Actually, Doug or Matt or any of the other folks on the TCON committee there today would love to take your questions for you. So thanks and take care.